Well, good morning. My name is Jim Vanderwall with the Fraser Basin Council. Welcome to our webinar this morning on optimizing the use of planning guides and toolkits. We're really pleased to be part of this webinar and co-host with Okanagan Basin Water Board and Civic Info BC. There's some information on the screen. If you're having any difficulties in connecting to the webinar or accessing the audio, you can always contact my colleague Sonia Dodig at fraserbasin@gmail.com. There's also information there on if you prefer to connect by phone for audio. For those of you that haven't participated in a webinar like this before, you'll notice that there's also a question box function that you can use to ask questions of the speakers over the course of the webinar, and especially, of course, towards the end. And we'll get to those towards the end of the webinar. We'd like to have lots of discussion, but because of the size of the group, and we've had a great interest in this, we won't be able to sort of unmute the lines and have people talk. It just it's too difficult to do that. So I don't know if you want to go to the next slide, Kelly.
Yeah, I'm actually trying to. But...
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't have control.
It's not participating.
No.
Well, it's on your screen, so just try clicking on into PowerPoint, selecting PowerPoint.
There we go. Okay.
Great. Like I said, we're really pleased to be part of this, and when Kelly asked if FBC was able to be part of the steering committee for this project, we said yes right away. We're really interested in being able to share information or find ways for people to access different toolkits that we've been involved with, things like the Retooling for Climate Change website or Climate Action Toolkit, and also recognize that it can be confusing, and often people don't use the toolkits that so much time and resources is spent developing. So pleased to be part of this, and I guess over to you, Todd, just for in terms of Civic Info's BC's role in the project.
Certainly. Hi, everyone. I'm Todd Pugh, and I'm the Executive Director with Civic Info BC. We're a local government information service, not-for-profit. We're based out of Victoria. We've been around since 1999, 2000, and just as Jim mentioned, it was the experience with the Fraser Basin Council. When Kelly approached us and asked if we were interested in being involved in this project, we jumped at the opportunity as well. We think it's a great resource that's been put together. Civic Info BC's role in this project has been as a host for the database, and Kelly will get into those details a little later. We did have some systems and some code in place already that we were able to leverage and use for hosting the documents. And we're pleased to do that. We're pleased to be part of this and looking forward to building on it going forward. We're pleased to be partnering with the Okanagan Basin Water Board. We have a long history of partnerships with different organizations on this type of project and others, and looking forward to seeing how this grows and evolves in the months and years ahead.
Thank you, Todd. This is Kelly Garcia with Okanagan Basin Water Board. So I'll be doing the presentation today, giving you a description of the project that we've been working on with Fraser Basin Council, Civic Info BC, and other organizations, and then walk you through the new hub that we've created with Civic Info BC. And Jim, did you want to do a quick poll now before I go to the next slide?
Yeah, that's a good idea. So why don't we just see who we have here who's participating today?
Yeah, throughout the presentation, we'll be doing a few polls and asking you some questions as we're moving through the presentation.
So just let us know what type of organization you're with. Okay, we'll close the poll and share the results with you. So I can't remember if you can see this as a speaker, Kelly, or not, but we've got 47% of people are with a local government or First Nation, about equally split, 19% with provincial or federal government, 19% with business or consulting, 13% with non-government, and 2% with academic.
Excellent. Great. Okay, so I'll move forward with my presentation now. First, just a quick overview about the Okanagan Basin Water Board. I noticed from their participation list that we have a lot of people on the webinar from outside of the Okanagan Valley. So just wanted to introduce you to our organization if you haven't heard of us. So the OBWB was initiated in about 1970 as a valley-wide partnership to work on issues that span the Okanagan Valley. And the board of directors is a collaboration of the 3 regional districts, North, Central, and Okanagan-Smelcomene regional districts. We also have a representative from the Okanagan Nation Alliance, the Water Supply Association of BC, and the Okanagan Water Stewardship Council. The council is a technical advisory body to the board that provides independent science-based advice on water issues. So our programs at the OBWB are supported through tax assessments on lands within the Okanagan watershed. So the motivation for the project. Many great toolkits and guides are available, and these guides contain best practices and legal approaches to help communities adapt to climate change, support conservation, and practice sustainable development. And more are being written as we speak. So the OBWB is one group who has written guides over the years, and we suspected that the resources we created were not being used to their full potential. And we had some ideas as to why this was, but we were really interested in investigating that further and figuring out why. What are the barriers to the use of all these resources we've worked so hard to put together? So we received a grant from the BC Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing to embark on a project to inventory what guides and toolkits are out there, investigate the uptake of these resources, and then learn more about barriers and gather ideas for solutions to address those barriers. And then after all that sort of investigative work, provide some support activities to increase use, help increase use. So when I started looking at what is available out there, I found many resources, and some of these you might recognize. So I kept looking. You get my drift. You know, there are many documents that so many groups have worked hard on preparing. You get the point. And I just kept finding more and more as I continued my research into what was available. The other thing I noticed is that there are many organizations that host or provide links to these toolkits and guides. Here, in no particular order, here are some of the organizations that I discovered produce these guides and then are hosting them on their various websites. So the first thing I did is I brought together a group of, a working group, so of project advisors to help me with this. They included people from some of the groups you just saw on the previous slide, and then some local government planners. So they helped me create a survey. And we did this February 2017, we did this survey. And we distributed it through the email and social media networks of those organizations that were on the working group. Plus, I also distributed it to some regional districts, local governments, and also consulting agencies that provide planning services to local governments. So we had 45 people who participated, and of course, most of them were planners. That was our target audience, but we also had some engineers, and the consultants that participated were actually planning consultants as well. So the first question we asked was, what planning toolkits and guides do you use? And we just gave a list of some of the ones we thought would be the most popular, or the most heard of, or the most useful. And we asked people, do you use it often, once in a while, heard of it but never use it, and never heard of it? So the green bars are heard of it but never use it, or never heard of it. So you can see that most of the people the toolkits were not well known or well used, which is what we suspected. We also had an open-ended question to this that said, do you use any other toolkits or guides not listed above? And we got some good feedback there as well, and that helped us find documents that we maybe we weren't aware of either. So Jim just wanted to ask a quick question through the poll at this point.
Okay, so we'll just ask a similar question to you. Actually, it's for the next, I think it's for the next question, Kelly. So why don't we just hold off?
Sure, sorry about that.
Unless you want to do it before.
So, no, this is when we'll ask the question. Sorry, got confused there. So the next question we asked, this was a very short survey. It was only about 4 questions, I think. But the next question we asked was, okay, so if you know of the toolkits, why don't you use them? What obstacles prevent use? And here were the results. So basically, a lack of time and resources to consider the information in the toolkits was the most significant that came out. The next was a lack of outreach and support after toolkits are released. That was considered the second most significant obstacle. So here's where Jim's going to ask you a similar question, because I've got a really big group here and I'd love to hear how you would have answered this question.
Okay, so similar question. Let us know what you think your obstacles are to preventing the use of toolkits. And you can select more than one if you like. Okay, so it looks like most people have finished voting, so we'll just close that and share the results. And sorry, I'm not sure why it's not showing for you, Kelly, but I'll read out the results. So the top choice was too much information, too many documents at 66%. Next was at 60% unaware of what toolkits are available. After that, lack of time and resources at 53%. 23% lack of outreach and support after tools are released, and 16% has difficulty applying in real-world situations.
Interesting. Okay.
So a little bit different from what you saw, but not too much.
Okay, then the next question. Oh, I should just also say we had an open-ended question with that previous one that said, what other obstacles other than those listed above are limiting your use of planning toolkits and guides? And we received a lot of kind of open-ended responses to that too, which was really interesting and helped guide our research. So what would help increase use of toolkits? And we gave a few options. And we found that you can see at the bottom there, an online information hub that provides access to all toolkits and guides, the one-stop shop, really came out on top. The other ones sort of tied, webinars, workshops, and a guide to the guides handout tied. There wasn't really a second best solution that came out. So we chose to focus on that information hub for this project. And go ahead, Jim.
Sure. So we'll launch a similar poll. We're not going to ask you about the information hub because that already exists, but on some of the other options. So let us know what you think would be helpful in increasing the use of toolkits. And again, you can select more than one if you would like. Okay, again, it looks like most people have had a chance to vote. So interesting, little different as well here. The top choice was a guide to guides handout, 75%. Next after that was webinars at 61%. 42% annual email reminder of what's available. In-person workshops at 37% and case studies at 31%.
Interesting, great. Good. Okay, so we chose, like I said, to focus on this online hub. rather than create another brand new platform, which requires a lot of time and money and resources, we wanted to piggyback on something that was already out there. And so we identified Civic Info BC as a really good local government platform that we could possibly just add to, right? And it has, that platform is pretty well known with local governments. It provides information about grant opportunities, employment opportunities, etc. So got a hold of Todd and started that partnership. The other thing that I did is I hired 2 planners to help me write descriptions and assign search criteria to each toolkit and guidebook. And you'll see that when we get into the online hub. But they were really crucial in helping me figure out the best way to present the information that we've included in the database. So let's take a look at the hub. So that's the direct URL. You can also get to it under Research Tools and Planning Guides. So again, here's the grants database that many of you might be familiar with. And we've just added the Planning Guides database under here as well. So basically, you come up to this search function. The search function is the key component of this database, and that's why it's front and center at the top here. We currently have 58 guidebooks and toolkits in here, but I've already got another 6 or so sitting on my computer that people have contributed since they've heard about this project. And that's what the hope is that people will look at this database and see something's missing that they've created or they know of, and will contact us and let us know so we can add it. So the guides are listed by date. So the most recent will come up first on the landing page and also when you do your searches. So here's the search function. At the top here, you can search, it's a free form search, and you can search by title or by keyword. Okay, so there's the Green Bylaws Toolkit coming up. You can also search by keyword. So wetland. So that's just an example of how to use that. That's a free form. You also have these different search criteria here. So by author, and here are the main authors that we have in the database. We've lumped together all the provincial ministries and the federal agencies into these broad categories. We're trying to find the balance between having enough criteria that you are able to find what you're interested in, but not too much that it just becomes, it kind of defeats the purpose. So there are the authors. You can also search by year. And we've tried to include a lot of the more recent resources. So there may be resources dating further back, but we've chosen not to include them just maybe because the information is out of date. You can search by subject area. So there's all of the different subjects that would be associated with the guidebooks and toolkits. And then application. This is, what are you using the information for? These are plans and policies, basically. So are you writing a biodiversity conservation plan? Are you doing a land use plan? Writing a bylaw? Putting together a water conservation program? So those are the application. Why are you looking for this information? And then lastly, the tool. What type of information are you looking for? Are you looking for background information? Are you looking for sample bylaw language, etc.? So I'll just show you a quick search. So you can either use these individually or you can do searches together. So you're working on a development permit area, for example, and the purpose of that permit area is to protect shorelines, for example. Okay, so you've come up with these 4 records that match those 2 search criteria. So now I'll just take you a step further into the database. So for each document, we've included a summary at the top that talks about what it is and why it's useful. And then here again are your search criteria that link back to that function I just showed you. Of course, the Green Bylaws Toolkit, it's a very broad document and it hits many topics, and that's why it has so many search criteria associated with it. Of course, not every document is going to have this. Some will just have a few listed here if it's more of a narrow focus. Okay, so for each toolkit and guide, we've also included a link to the PDF. So there's your PDF of Green Bylaws Toolkit, and then a link to the web page that it's hosted on. So that's included for each document where it's available. And the reason we wanted to include the HTML as well is because a lot of these organizations also have other resources on their website that you might be interested in, and it provides that link for you to even dive deeper if you're interested in finding more information. I didn't show you here, but there's also this option to reset your form as you're working through it, and other things that you'll notice while you're working through the toolkit. It's very user-friendly, or sorry, through the database. It's very user-friendly, and there you go. So that was all I was going to show you there. I'll go back to my presentation now. So of course we recognize that just by creating an online hub, like, it's an excellent start because we have brought all of those resources together, but we recognize that this won't necessarily be increasing their use. We need a multifaceted outreach and support strategy. And so here are some of the ideas that we've thought about, but I'm really interested in hearing from the audience today, and that's why we've done some of those polls, and we'll have a question and answer time. What would help support increased use of these toolkits? Webinars, workshops, email refreshers, guide to the guides. We talked about those in the poll that we've already done. One other thing that we were thinking about is having a shared support person who is trained in applying the resources, and we actually had applied for some funding over the summer, the OBWB, to hire somebody within the Okanagan Valley to do this thing. And we weren't successful in that grant application, but we're really interested in either partnering with other groups who would like to do this, or facilitating this in some way. And then, of course, we need to continue the partnerships between the groups that are preparing these resources. That working group that I showed you at the beginning of the presentation, continue the dialogue between these different people so that we aren't duplicating our efforts, in a sense, and we're making sure that this database is maintained and relevant. So as you're using the online hub, I'm interested in your feedback. So my contact information will be at the end of this presentation, but the only way we can find if there are any glitches or how we can improve it is to hear from the users. So very interested in hearing from you. And of course, if you have any other resources that should be added, channel them through me, and I'll make sure that they get descriptions and search criteria assigned to them and get posted on that database. And then what support activities would help you use the resources more? We've talked about barriers today. So what are the solutions to those barriers, and how can we increase the use of these really valuable resources that have been created by all these different groups? So I just wanted to wrap up by saying thank you very much for Fraser Basin Council for hosting this webinar, and of course the Civic Info BC for building and hosting the database. We have a memorandum of understanding with Civic Info BC now between OBWB and them, and that's for the long-term maintenance and partnership of this database. I'd really also like to thank those people that I listed on the first slide for their guidance in this project, and of course the funder. And then thank you to you for attending. This was a very popular webinar, and I think that's excellent, because I think that now that we're taking this more holistic approach to looking at all of these toolkits, I think we could probably increase their use in the future, and that would be great from my perspective. So thank you very much. And there's my contact information.
That's great, Kelly. I wonder if it might be helpful if you wanted to put the slide up that had the questions, since now we're kind of open for any questions that people have, or suggestions or feedback. And I can sort of, I can moderate some of those and read those out as they come in. Mm-hmm. That makes sense. First comment here is from Christine Kell, who says the Canadian Institute of Planners also has a web page of resources, including guides and case studies. And she's included a link here, which we'll share with you after.
Thank you, Christine. I know her.
Yeah. Yeah, Christine's great. And she also mentions that she can't wait to share this resource through PIBC and the Canadian Institute of Planners membership. So that's
Thank you.
That's great.
Wonderful.
Another thank you from one of our staff members, from Teresa Fresco, for an incredible tool, and thanks so much for the work. Any other feedback people have, or other resources that you'd suggest, or activities that you would find useful?
I just wanted to say one thing that Todd's typed to me here is, a lot of times with these databases, you get the problem of the dead links as people are changing their website URLs and that sort of thing. And so he says that to keep the links current, they'll be scanning automatically and semi-regularly for dead links, and then we can update those as needed. So you don't have that frustration of clicking on the PDF and going to a link that's no longer active.
But that said, if you catch one before we do, by all means, let us know. We can,
right.
Great. Juliet Craig from the Kootenay Conservation Program says that they'll be sending this out, the link to this new hub, in their next e-news. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I wonder, I mean, one specific question I had is, well, sorry, someone's asking if the webinar is being recorded, and yes, it is being recorded. So it'll be available. I think it'll be on the OBWB YouTube channel, on the Fraser Basin YouTube channel, and I think Civic Info will also have it posted as well. So, and if you would like the PowerPoint, it's also available just as a handout. You should be able to download it right from the little control panel that's floating on your screen as well. Juliet also mentions from the Kootenay Conservation Program that they just found that they received funding to host a local government forum in the Kootenays, focusing on integrating existing tools for conservation into local government activities. And she'd love to know if you, I think she means Kelly, could be a guest speaker or have suggestions. So
yes, get in touch with me, Juliet.
Rick Simpson mentions he just attended a day-long workshop on environmental farm planning focused on improving biodiversity, and another webinar yesterday on lentic and low-tick riparian restoration methodology. Another thank you here from another participant. Another question I think I was thinking of when I noticed that webinars of one area of follow-up that people are interested in. If there were future webinars, I don't know if people could type in topics that they might be interested in hearing about that relate to this area or relate to the kind of tools that are in the hub. That might also be useful feedback.
Mm-hmm.
And you also have a chance to provide that type of feedback in the, there'll be a survey that pops up when we're done as well here. And someone's asking about the contact person for the planned Kootenay planning event. So I'm not sure, Kelly, are you planning to send a follow-up email to everyone on the webinar? I'm wondering if that's something that we could include in that follow-up.
I don't know that information though.
Well, we can, I guess, Juliet Craig.
Yeah, I'll connect with her, and then we can
figure that out. Okay, we'll follow up in some way with that. Okay, one suggestion for a future topic is application of tools. How to use tools and under what circumstances, picking the right tool for the job.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Another one perhaps is a webinar after some period of use and some other suggestions to increase uptake have been implemented.
Okay.
Oh. Monitoring of stream levels and glacial cover changes. Another suggestion.
Okay.
So another suggestion of this document just came to mind, the Natural Capital Policy Review, a review of policy options to protect, enhance, and restore natural capital in BC's urban areas. It's maybe not in the database.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't heard of that one, so I can add it.
Yeah. A few people are asking for your contact info as well, Kelly, so we should go back to that
slide. Yeah.
And I'll also just post here in the chat Juliet's information in the Kootenays regarding their event, so that people have that. If anyone's interested in following up with her about the event that she talked about in terms of incorporating conservation and local government planning. I don't see any other questions at the moment or suggestions. Is there anything else that you want to say, Kelly?
Yeah, I'm just getting one from Todd, and we're wondering if it would be useful if we included a suggestion form kind of thing, like attached to the database. So if you're cruising through it and you don't see something that you think should be in there, you could fill out that form and submit it. I think that might be a good way of allowing people to do it on the spot instead of having to email me. So I think that's a good idea, Todd.
Yeah, we can do that, no problem.
Yeah. Couple of other suggestions here around documents around collaborative watershed governance or water sustainability act implications for municipalities. And that's from Teresa Fresco, and she mentions she can send some if you need any suggestions.
Yes, please. I would.
Okay, great. This isn't a guide or toolkit, but the Attorney General just released a report on BC's readiness for climate change. Yeah, suggestion form would be helpful. Great.
One other feature we can build into this going forward, we can build in an automatic email notification for people if they are interested in receiving a notice in their inbox when a new resource is posted that meets certain criteria, specific criteria. It would just be an automatic way to stay on top of what's being added.
Great, that's useful. And Kelly, I don't know if you can speak to this or Todd, but are there resources to continue updating this over time, or how is that? How's that going to look?
Yes, the OBWB and Civic Info BC will continue to work together to update this.
Yep, we're committed.
Great, excellent. Okay, well, I don't see any other questions or suggestions coming in at the moment. If there's anything else that you wanted to cover before.
That's everything from me, short and sweet, yeah.
Okay, well, great. I think we had some pretty good suggestions coming in, and looking forward to seeing how this evolves. And it's a great resource that we will also be directing people to as well in our work. So thank you very much, Kelly and Todd, and hope everybody else has a great rest of your day.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for hosting, Jim. Thank you, everybody.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.